Hi, this is Steve Dale. And today we have a real treat. We're going to be talking about the new federal internet discount program for low income households. And we have as a guest today, Attorney John Pessel. Now, we're recording this on March 23rd, 2021. And just a real quick introduction of John here. He has over 30 years of experience in communications, utility, and energy law. He's the chair of Varnum's telecommunications practice group. He's a graduate of Harvard College, Yale Graduate School, and the University of Michigan Law School. He's been admitted to in Arizona and Michigan here, and a member of the Federal Communications Bar. John, thank you so much for joining us today, and looking forward to learning more about this new program.
Well, Steve, thank you. And I really appreciate your reaching out to me to indicate how important this is for special needs trustees, custodians, caregivers, and so on. I'm, as you know, an FCC attorney. I became aware of this program. It's not part of my main practice area, but it's important. And so I did a workup and burned a weekend, and then have done some webinars to try to get the word out about it. And I really appreciate your reaching out to me and saying, hey, this is really important for special needs kids. And we have 3 of those in our family, so I understand this. Briefly, Steve, this is a bit of a 10,000-foot overview for several reasons. As you and I talked about it, the goal today, I think, is to make people aware of the program. It's still being stood up. It's not in place yet. It's a big effort by the feds and by the cable and phone and other companies to make it work. So I'm going to be giving you the major points. We know the major points, we know the medium points, but not all the forms or web pages have been created or out there yet. They will be here soon. And at least my goal, and I think yours, Steve, is so that people are aware of this, they can be looking, and then they can get people signed up as quickly as possible. Steve was a tough taskmaster. He said, John, you got a 31-page presentation. You're limited to 1 page. So I've tried to do that. The key for you may be some of the links at the bottom, because I'm going to go through a lot of the main things here. I've asked Steve and Amy, his assistant, to ask questions. But if you go to that 30-slide presentation, you'll get an answer to a lot of the questions. And then the FCC website at the bottom, it doesn't have much there now, but hopefully it will have more there as time goes on. The FCC is keenly aware that they need to get the word out, and obviously, this is a way to do it. Where did this come from? In the stimulus bill at the end of last year, among many other things, Congress said, we need to help low-income households get the internet for distance learning, telecommuting, telehealth during the pandemic. And so this was a number of provisions that were put in there to help during the pandemic. If you look at the description, it says it's for low-income households. But low income, as Steve pointed out to me, covers many special needs individuals. And so I've taken a program which is really about low income and then cut it back and focused on how it pertains to special needs persons. Briefly, the top line pretty much says what it's about. It's a discount of $50 a month, $75 a month on tribal lands for internet service from a wide variety of providers: cable, wireless internet, your cell phone company, your regular phone company. There's some other providers that may be out there, but they're the main ones. And it's focused on internet. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. And for that reason, it does not include conventional cable TV. If you look at the second and third lines there, the FCC said, okay, if you have a package that includes internet, voice, and text, i.e. a cell phone, yeah, that qualifies. So if you have cell phone service, you're covered. But if you have regular cable TV service as part of your package, cable, internet, phone, the discount does not apply. Because Congress said, we're trying to help internet get out there, not entertainment. It doesn't apply to the old dial-up internet either. I think a key point is once you get signed up, the discount, if you qualify, will automatically be applied to your bill. You don't need to do anything else. You get the discount, the provider gets reimbursed by the federal government. When does it start? Soon. The FCC says they expect it to be available in many places in April of this year, so roughly 30, 40 days from now. And it runs until either the $3.2 billion that Congress has appropriated runs out, or 6 months after the COVID pandemic ends. And the pandemic ends when the Department of Health and Human Services says it ends for purposes of this program. We hope that Congress may be able to extend it, but that's in the future. Who's eligible for it? And here, Steve and Amy have been helpful. And there are several categories. The main ones of emphasis here, anyone, if any person in a household, and that's the key word, if there's a household of 8 people and one of them qualifies, the household gets the benefit. So if any person in that household gets Medicaid, supplemental Social Security, SNAP or food stamps as they're sometimes called, or federal housing assistance, the household qualifies. There's some other categories as well, but those are the main ones. Just so you're aware, some of the things I didn't put on this slide, but are in the main presentation, are a household qualifies if any of the children in the household get free or reduced lunch at school, or if any member of the household had a substantial loss of income after February of last year, and they're pretty generous about that. So those are the main things about who is eligible for this program. Then how do you get it? And this is where Steve was helpful with me. For our purposes, you have to show that you're eligible, that you qualify in terms of the FCC. And the way to do that is through the website I'm showing there, USAC. That's the master website. It's got the Lifeline program, which I'll mention in a minute, and some other things on it. They haven't got the tab there yet for this program, but it will be coming. And if you have somebody in the categories I've just mentioned, Medicaid, supplemental Social Security, and so on, the key is as soon as that web page opens up, go there, register, and qualify. Then when Comcast or Verizon or AT, whomever your provider is, comes, you'll sign the form, and then they will say, are you qualified? And you will be able, however the form does it or the web page does it, say, yep, check with USAC, and I'm all signed up. So that's what we're suggesting. I mean, you can do it the other way around, and work with the provider's form first. But for these kinds of qualifications, you're going to want to register. You'll have to register probably on the USAC website, and be in line for as soon as the program starts, because it is a limited duration. I also want to mention, as under the line carefully or cleverly marked, also, there is an existing permanent program of discounts on phone and internet service for many of the same people that qualify for this discount. It's called the Lifeline program. And USAC has administered that for many years. The discounts aren't huge. I think they're under $10 per month. But if you sign up for one, you probably ought to sign up for the other. I don't know all the details on the rules for Lifeline, but I know they're fairly similar. So if you qualify for one, you qualify for both. And by the way, if you do qualify for both, let's say the internet discount for Lifeline is $10, now you have a $60 discount to play with. So that's helpful. And this may become important because the FCC had to roll this out so quickly. What they say is any participating company has to offer the discount on at least one of its internet and service offerings. They're encouraged to offer them on all their offerings, but they don't have to. My understanding is the Lifeline, and this is my understanding, is that the Lifeline discount, let's say it's $10, would apply to any of the internet offerings. So that may be a detail that becomes important down the line. And anyway, that is an overview. I encourage you to go down to this website here, where we put up the full 30 slides, and then to the FCC one at the bottom, which will have more information probably about how to sign up. Steve and Amy, that's the overview. Now you tell me what I've missed or questions that you have that may be helpful to some of your clients.
Well, I'll start by asking you a question about the $100 for equipment.
Oh, very good. Sure. Yep. I didn't. Yep.
Is that monthly? Is that a one-time? What if I qualify for internet but I don't have a computer?
Number one, if you don't have a computer, you get up to a $100 credit. I think they're requiring a $10 copay. It is only for laptops, tablets, and I think iPads, something like that. It is not for cell phones. Let me just check on that. Laptops, desktops, or tablets. But if you don't have a computer, you will get the $100. Also, if you don't have internet service now, you still qualify for this. If you want to drop your conventional cable service to qualify, the way I read the FCC rules, they say you can do that because they say any restriction that would otherwise prevent you from signing up. I'm behind on my bill. I didn't return my cable box, whatever. But those are not applicable to people that qualify for this discount.
Okay. And John, one thing that when I went through the full program, and I would encourage, attorneys and trustees to actually look at the 30 slide presentation. It has a lot more information. But what I got out of that is virtually every client, every beneficiary that I have at the Golden State Pool Trust either is receiving one of these programs or if there's a child receiving the program. My understanding is the only major restriction is going to be that if you have a package with HBO and that sort of thing, that's what's not covered. But the actual internet itself is covered in the self-service and communication programs, right?
I think that's correct, Steve. I'm not as familiar on the Medicaid SSI. You know that part, and I'm in my slides there basically on that aspect quote directly from the rules. But the reality is, particularly for people in urban areas, you can get these little desktop rooftop antennas to get your local over-the-air broadcast stations. Many people have done that. Some of our neighbors have. And so you can cut the cord for conventional cable. No, you won't get HBO, but there's an awful lot out there streaming. So that might be an option for somebody who says, geez, I'm not sure I want to drop my conventional cable service. That's a way to do it. You'd have to spend a few bucks to get a digital antenna to plug into the back of your TV, but it'll work.
And John, my assumption is that if you're using your internet for Roku or one of those other programs that's not provided by your provider, that should be fine because you're just using regular internet at that point. That's
my understanding. Yes, it's, and I think the key to that is it's a broadband program, and broadband can be anything from distance learning, telecommuting, Weather Channel, Roku. You'd have to pay for Netflix, obviously. If you have Amazon Prime, not so much. But yes, Steve, that's that. And again, that's consistent with Congress's goal. We want to get broadband out there to these low-income households during the pandemic. And if they use it for other stuff, so be it. And you can see that in the order. The order is about 94 pages. About 60 of that is relevant text. And in my slide presentation, which is I'm mentioning at the bottom here, when I say something, I give a citation like you had in your English class in high school or in college, or lawyers use, so you can say, oh, that's where that comes up in that page of the FCC order, and you can go there and read it and see what they're saying. And usually that's pretty helpful, because the FCC usually says, we're thinking about this, we've had these three proposals, here's the one we chose and why. And that's usually really helpful in understanding what's going on. Let me mention one other thing. Household. It is extremely broadly defined here. It is not the 1950s Ozzie and Harriet for people like Steve and I who know what that refers to. The FCC says it is basically any group of people living together, sharing expenses or sharing income. It does not matter whether there's a blood relationship or not. And in the slides, I actually quote that to give you some idea of how aggressive the FCC is on this. If there's multiple families at the same address, each qualifies. And the one that really tugs at my heart, the example they gave, and they had questions about this. What if you have multiple families in a homeless shelter? That each one qualifies. They're a household. They may not have a tent. They may be sleeping on the floor, but if they got a Wi-Fi hotspot or a cell phone, each one qualifies.
Well, it'll be especially useful then, I suppose, when we're looking at things like group homes, or where we have multiple people living under the same room, which is very congregate living, which is very common with persons with disabilities. So we're not just looking at who's under that roof. There could be multiple households within that same roof.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And the congregate living, that thank you for bringing that up. The other thing the FCC, and again, you're talking about the FCC coming from a telephone regulatory background. And one of the questions that was raised with them is, gee, what if I get internet service as a part of my rent, or at an assisted living facility or group home? And I assume by that they mean, I don't know. They said if your internet service is included in your rent, you still qualify, and the owner of the building gets the discount and has to pass it through. I don't know the details of how that works out, but I can understand the premise. Now, it may work better if you've got an internet jack on the wall that you have to plug into, as opposed to Wi-Fi in the ceiling, where who can tell, am I on your Wi-Fi, Steve, or on Amy's, or on my own? But I want to put the concept out there, because they were very emphatic about that for mobile home parks, apartment buildings, group homes. So they tried to answer that question.
Okay. And John, Amy and I have both been checking the usac.org website. It's still in development, but once again, what I got out of this is that this isn't going to last forever. So it's probably to get the most bang for the buck out of here. The sooner you can sign up, the better. So can you give us an idea of why it might be better to look at registering at usac.org rather than just waiting for your internet provider to knock on your door and tell you about this?
Yeah, because the internet provider, whomever they may be, to get reimbursed by the feds, they have to make sure that you qualify, you, Steve, you, Amy. And for the kinds of qualifications we're talking about here, Medicaid, Social Security, and so on, the main, if not the only way to do that is through USAC. And apparently, what we have been told is that USAC, if you're a Medicaid recipient and you go on there when the web page is up, and they're extrapolating from how Lifeline works now, you sign up and you put in your identifying information. The USAC computers link to other federal computers, so they should be able to tell very, very quickly, yes, you qualify. And if there's a question, there's a way to flip over to talk to an actual customer service representative. Now, that's what the order says. The reality, they're creating a program from the ground up. So, there's going to be hitches for sure. But Steve, I think, that's why I think as soon as the USAC website opens up for this, and it will, if you have someone that qualifies, get registered now. If there's a glitch, you can get it straightened out. And then when the provider comes around with their form, or you go to their website, you should not be encountering long delays between when you apply and when it kicks in. The discount kicks in.
Okay, and we'll make a commitment here with the Golden State Pool Trust, their law firm, and our YouTube channel, that when the website is active, we'll make sure that a notice goes out. So if you subscribe to one of our programs, you'll make sure that you get this. John, another thing here, just as we're finishing up, is that my understanding is that each provider is going to choose what they're going to provide. So what you get from one provider may be different from another provider.
Absolutely correct. We're hopeful. I mean, and here there's a tension back and forth. But yeah, any participating provider has to offer at least one service that this qualifies for. They may offer more. The good news, if they offer more, maybe they have better bandwidth, they're faster. The bad news, if the faster ones will cost more, and so they'll run through the 3.2 billion that much more quickly. So you've got a bit of a trade-off there with a limited pot of money. There's hope that in some subsequent legislation that this or some similar program may be continued, but that's in the future. We can't tell that now.
So if my son or my loved one is currently on a low income rate from Comcast, it's possible that Comcast may say that rate doesn't qualify for this program, but another rate does, which costs more, which to the special needs individual, they're better off because they still don't have to pay anything. They pay less than $10, but actually Comcast is better off because they're now serving an individual at a higher rate.
Yeah, so let's say Comcast comes through with a $35 program, and your son can say, "Oh, I'll drop the 10, I'll go to the 35," because his or your net is zero, so long as the program continues. And by the way, once the discount ends, they can't then automatically switch you to a paid program and it gets charged on your credit card bill. The FCC was very clear that when the discount ends, they have to give you 30 days notice. And then you continue with that or another program only if you affirmatively opt in. So it's not like, well, what was it? Some of the Book of the Month Club things where you got the books in the mail unless you opted out. No, it's an opt-in program at the end. So Amy, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. I was just wondering if individuals could go back and forth if it was to their advantage.
That is how I read the rules, that they allow you to switch. Again, Amy, you're asking very good implementation questions, and you'll notice I'm using the word should, and it's likely we will only know once it gets implemented. But certainly the sense, I hope from the examples I gave you of the FCC, is their intention is to make it broadly available, and hopefully the kind of mindset that underlay definition of household, a couple other things will carry over into the situation that you described.
So John, just putting on my trustee hat, for those of us that are trustees or serve persons with disabilities, who am I looking for as far as to notify about this program? What kind of individual am I looking for?
But I'd be going down my list of special needs people for whom you're for the fiduciary, the caregiver, the attorney, and going, looking at this checklist of Medicaid, Social Security, SNAP, and so on, and going, yes, yes, no, yes, yes, no. That, then you work from that and say, these people qualify, and then go forward.
So basically, what I'm looking at is virtually every household that has a beneficiary who is on SSI or one of the different disability programs potentially has a benefit here.
Yes.
Here. And then the other thing that I did get out of this, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the smart thing to do would be to keep an eye out for the usac.org website when it gets up and functional, which could be in days, it could be in weeks, but it should happen soon. And to get the most bang for the buck, registering will be the way to go.
I absolutely. The only other two things to keep in mind are that, if I suspect that some of the people who are involved in working with special needs kids, may know of other kids, children who get free or reduced price lunch. That's another major group. They have a different sign-up procedure, but that's a second group that really is going to benefit from this. And the other is any household that's at a huge loss of income. Don't lose. They're not the main focus of this program, but you may encounter some of them as well.
I think it's important to understand that because we, once again, our outreach, the folks we work with are folks that are disabled, but are beneficiaries of a trust or whatever. The amount of folks that this actually is meant to benefit is a much broader group than that.
Oh, yeah.
Here. So
yes, very much so.
Well, John, once again, I want to thank you so much and helping us get ahead of the curve here. I do want to tell you, for fiduciaries out there, for attorneys, $50 to $75 a month for somebody who's on SSI who's getting potentially less than $800 a month. This is huge. So this is something there is a huge benefit here. And I think the key is getting the word out. John, any last thoughts?
No, hey, thank you for taking the information in an email I put out and seeing how applicable it was and running for it. That was absolutely my goal, is to get the word out on this. And thank you, and God bless you for doing it.
Okay, and for those of you that are watching this, once again, I would, if you do want more information, John has been very generous by giving us a link to a much broader program. I will also make sure on the YouTube channel that that link is there so you can easily click it here. And John has provided us with lots of information. And John, I think this is going to be a nice little help for so many folks that we work with here. So thank you very much.
Thanks, my pleasure.